What's your residence? Where do you reside? Res. The thing identified. As you provide corporate ID, I see plantation serial numbers. You wonder. Lost at sea. Admiralty. Maritime military jurisdiction. Conviction. Abandoned estate. Left no escape. Trusting not in the divine alone. Met your fate corporate ward state.
June 23, Duravis Kane Rogers 22 Atlanta, Georgia. An officer responded to reports of a suspicious person at an apartment complex and encountered Rogers in a vehicle. When the officer pulled in front of Rogers' car, Rogers continued around the vehicle. The officer shot into the passenger side, killing Rogers. The officer was charged with murder. 485. July 4, Delron Small 37 New York City, New York. After a driving dispute in Brooklyn, off-duty officer Wicks shot Small with his service weapon when Small approached Isaacs's driver's side window. Isaacs initially claimed Small assaulted him, but security camera video contradicted his claim. Isaacs faced disciplinary charges in connection with the incident. 486. July 27, Dalvin Hollins 19 Tempe, Arizona. Officer Ed Ouimet shot Hollis, suspected of an armed robbery, in a parking lot. Ouimet claimed Hollins had a gun, but no gun was ever found. 487. July 28, Paul O'Neill 18 Chicago, Illinois. Police say that O'Neill, who was unarmed, fled from the vehicle after the chase and refused to stop. The shooting was classified by the medical examiner as a homicide. The three officers who discharged their weapons were removed from duty following a preliminary investigation. Following an investigation, no criminal charges were brought against the officers involved. July 28, Donnell Thompson Jr. 27 Compton, California. Deputies responded after Thompson was mistaken for a carjacking suspect while lying in a man's yard. After several commands and a flashbang failed to wake him, police used foam bullets, which woke Thompson up. Thompson then ran towards a SWAT vehicle with his hand near his waistband, and a SWAT officer shot him. 488. August 13, Silvo Smith 23 Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Smith was shot after throwing his firearm over a fence while being pursued by police during a foot pursuit. The officer who shot him was acquitted of reckless homicide. 489. August 30, Livonia Riggins 22 Palm River Clare Mel, Florida. A SWAT team served a warrant on Riggins for selling marijuana. When Riggins awoke and moved between his bed and a wall, Deputy Caleb Johnson shot him. Johnson stated he believed Riggins was reaching for a weapon when his hand moved near his waistband. 490. September 11, Terrence Sterling 31 Washington, D.C. Police pursued Sterling, riding a motorcycle, for a traffic violation. An officer shot Sterling after he rode his motorcycle into the side of a police cruiser. The department said Sterling had done so intentionally, while witnesses said they believed the crash was unavoidable. An internal review board found Officer Brian Traynor violated department policy and recommended he be fired. 491. September 16, Terrence Crutcher 40 Tulsa, Oklahoma. Terrence Crutcher was shot and killed by police officer Betty Jo Shelby in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was unarmed during the encounter, in which he was standing near his vehicle in the middle of a street. Shelby was charged with first-degree manslaughter after the shooting was labeled a homicide. On May 17, 2017, a jury found her not guilty of first-degree manslaughter. September 27, Alfred Olango 38 El Cajon, California. Olango was shot several times by police responding to a call for emergency psychiatric aid. San Diego County prosecutors declined to file charges against officers Josh McDaniel and Richard Gonzalez, who were involved in the shooting. Olango's sister noticed strange behavior from him and called police 3 times asking for immediate help. A 5150, involuntary psychiatric hold, request for a psychiatric emergency response team, PERT, was placed. 50 minutes after the first call, at least 2 non-PERT officers arrived on scene. In video footage released by police department, Olango drew an object and extended it in 2 hands towards police in a shooting stance before being shot. The object was an e-cigarette. 492. September 28, Christopher Soule 32 Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Police attempted to arrest Soule, who was suspected in a series of stabbings and physical attacks. Officers ordered Soule to take his hands out of his pockets. When he moved his hands abruptly, police shot him, with 9 officers firing a total of 109 times, 493. Incidents in year of 2017. January 4, Muhammad Mohaimin Jr. 43 Phoenix, Arizona police were called after Mohaimin attempted to bring his dog into a public bathroom. Police restrained Mohaimin after he was found to have a warrant, and Mohaimin died. An autopsy ruled Mohaimin's death a homicide, 494. January 6, Sean Moore 42 San Francisco, California police responded to reports of Moore violating a restraining order. Authorities say an officer struck Moore with a baton, leading Moore to strike back. Officer Kenneth Cha then shot Moore. Moore died in 2020 and an autopsy found his death was partially caused by the gunshot wound. Cha was charged with voluntary manslaughter and assault with a semi-automatic firearm, 495. January 9, J.R. Williams 38 Phoenix, Arizona. Following a pursuit, Williams kept his hands concealed and threatened to shoot officers. When Williams turned with his hand from his waistband, police shot him. Williams was unarmed, 496. January 26, DeAndre Phillips 24 Atlanta, Georgia. Police responded to reports of a suspicious man in a vehicle. Officer Yassine Abdulahad shot Phillips when the vehicle started to drive off. Abdulahad claimed he was halfway in the car and was being dragged, but surveillance video showed he had fully entered the vehicle when it started moving, 497. February 7, Wardell Davis 20 Buffalo, New York. Officers Todd C. McAllister and Nicholas J. Parisi stopped Davis after he was seen exiting a known drug house. A physical encounter occurred, and Davis fell unconscious and died. An autopsy ruled his death a homicide, 498. February 8, Chad Robertson 25 Chicago, Illinois. Amtrak police officer LaRoyce Tankson patted down Robertson near Union Station. Robertson fled and reached into his pocket, causing Tankson to shoot. Robertson did not have any weapons, and there was marijuana in his pocket. Tankson was charged with murder but was acquitted, 499. February 9, Quan Ice Hayes 17 Portland, Oregon. Officer Andrew Hurst shot Hayes from 10 feet away with an AR-15. Hayes was on his knees with hands in the air. A jury declined to indict Hurst, 500. February 13, Raynard Burton 19 Detroit, Michigan. Following a pursuit of a stolen car, Officer Gerald Blanding got into a struggle with Burton, ending when Blanding shot Burton in the chest. Prior to Burton's death, Blanding had been involved in 4 shootings, 2 off-duty, 501. March 13, Luke Stewart 23 Euclid, Ohio. While responding to a suspicious vehicle report, Officer Matthew Rhodes got into Stewart's vehicle when he began to drive away. After shocking and hitting Stewart with a stun gun, Rhodes shot him. A grand jury declined to indict Rhodes, 502, 503. March 19, Alteria Woods 21 Gifford, Florida. Woods was lying on a bed in her boyfriend's home when police conducted a raid. A shootout occurred, and Woods was struck by police gunfire, 504. April 12, Kenneth Johnson 25 Reading, Pennsylvania. Police responding to a domestic dispute call encountered a woman who told them her boyfriend assaulted her. When police encountered Johnson, he swung at them when police tried to handcuff him, and an officer tossed him. Johnson became unresponsive and died, and his death was later ruled a homicide, 505. April 29, Jordan Edwards 15 Balch Springs, Texas. Jordan Edwards, a 15-year-old boy, was fatally shot by police officer Roy Oliver, 506, 507, 508, 509. He was struck in the back of the head while riding in the front passenger seat of a car driving away from police, 508, 510. Police originally claimed the vehicle was backing toward them in an aggressive manner, but video later revealed that the car was driving away at the time Edwards was shot, 506. Oliver was found guilty of murdering Edwards at trial in August 2018, 511, and was sentenced to 15 years in prison, 512. May 7, Landon Nobles 24 Austin, Texas. Sergeant Richard Eagle and Corporal Maxwell Johnson shot and killed Nobles as a crowd dispersed in front of a bar. Police stated that Nobles fired at officers, but several witnesses said Nobles was unarmed. 513. May 14th, Tashi Farmer, 40, Las Vegas, Nevada. Tashi Farmer, also known as Tashi Brown, was reported to be acting erratically at the Venetian Hotel Casino and was chased by officers. Police tossed Farmer when he tried to enter a citizen's truck. Officer Kenneth Lopra then placed Farmer in a rear-naked choke, leading to his death. An autopsy ruled Farmer's death a homicide. Lopra was charged with manslaughter, but his charges were dropped. 514. May 21st, Jimmy Sanders, 33, Appleton, Wisconsin. Sanders was at a bar when police responded to reports of a man firing a gun. A lieutenant shot at the armed man, but struck Sanders instead, killing him. 515. June 8, David Jones, 30, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Officer Ryan Pownell pulled over Jones, on a dirt bike, in the Juniata neighborhood. Pownell frisked Jones and felt a firearm, leading to a struggle. Pownell attempted to shoot Jones, but his gun jammed. Jones then threw his gun down and ran away. Pownell shot him 3 times in the back. Pownell was later charged with homicide. 516. June 29, Aaron Bailey, 45, Indianapolis, Indiana. Following a chase, 2 officers shot and killed Bailey. The officers stated they believed Bailey was reaching for a weapon, but no weapon was found. 517. July 7, Yuri Martin, 58, Deep Step, Georgia. Martin was reported after a man noticed him trying to fill an empty soda can with water from a spigot. 3 deputies tossed Martin, who fell unconscious and died. A medical examiner determined his death was a homicide. 518. 519. The officers were charged, but a mistrial was declared after the jury deadlocked. 520. August 27, Damon Grimes, 15, Detroit, Michigan. Officer Mark Bessner tossed Grimes as he drove by a police car on an ATV, causing him to crash into a truck. Bessner stated he believed Grimes was reaching for a gun, but no weapon was found on him. 521. August 28, Anthony Antonio Ford, 27, Miami, Florida. Following a traffic stop, Officer Eduardo Perez shot and killed Ford in an alley. The state attorney for Miami-Dade County declined to file charges against the officer. 522. October 20th, Armando Frank, 42, Marksville, Louisiana. Police attempted to arrest Frank for a warrant, finding him sitting on a tractor. After refusing to get off the tractor without seeing the warrant, officers tried to get him down, with police firing a shock device 3 times and putting Frank in several choke holds. Frank died, and a forensic pathologist determined his death was a homicide. 523. November 18, Lawrence Hawkins, 56, Pritchard, Alabama. Officer Jonathan Murphy shot and killed Hawkins in front of his home, including twice in the back. In 2020, Murphy was arrested for murder relating to a separate off-duty killing. 524. December 1, Kata O'Neill, 42, San Francisco, California. Rookie officer Chris Samayoa shot O'Neill, suspected of a carjacking, during a chase. After O'Neill exited the stolen van, he fled to a housing complex and was shot in the back of the head by Samayoa, on his 4th day on the job. Samayoa was charged with manslaughter in 2020. 525. December 27, Dennis Plowden, 25, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Following a chase, Officer Eric Rouge shot Plowden as he had his left hand visibly raised in the air. Rouge was charged with 1st-degree murder, 3rd-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter, and possession of an instrument of crime. 526. Rouge was convicted of manslaughter in 2022. 527. Incidents in year of 2018. January 23, Corey Mobley, 38, Bradenton, Florida. An officer responded to a domestic incident and shot Mobley. Mobley claimed he had a gun, but he was unarmed. 528. January 27, Crystalline Barnes, 21, Jackson, Mississippi. After a pursuit for a traffic violation, police fired at Barnes, stating she hit a patrol car while driving in reverse. According to court documents, one of the officers, Rakasha Adams, fired when Barnes attempted to drive away from the patrol car and the curb. The other officer, Albert Taylor, fired after the car made a U-turn, although Taylor had earlier stated he was the first to fire. Adams then fired again. In total, 17 bullets were fired at the vehicle, from the sides and back, 529. February 13, Ronald Foster 33 Vallejo, California officer Ryan McMahon shot and killed Foster after a struggle, which started after McMahon pulled Foster over for riding a bicycle without proper lights. After McMahon struck Foster several times with his flashlight, Foster took it and McMahon shot him. McMahon was later one of the officers involved in the shooting of Willie McCoy in 2019, 530. February 17, Trey Pringle 23 Seabrook, South Carolina. Pringle's family called 911 after he began exhibiting strange behavior while watching TV. Deputies struggled with Pringle and tossed him twice. He went into cardiac arrest and died 3 days later. His death was ruled a homicide. No charges were filed against the deputies involved. 531. February 21, Darian Baker 22 Stratford, Texas. Police followed Baker to a gas station for driving suspiciously. When officers flashed their lights, drew their guns, and ran towards the car, Baker and his passenger got into their car, which was stolen, and fled. An officer shot Baker in the back. 532. March 2, Christopher Eisinger 35 Anaheim, California. Police responded to reports of a man attempting to open a house gate and encountered Eisinger. Police restrained Eisinger and an officer put their knee on his sternum. After several minutes, officers noticed Eisinger was unconscious. A jury determined police used excessive force and were largely responsible for Eisinger's death. 533. March 12, Terrell McGee 54 Santa Ana, California. Police responded to a report of a burglary at a business and encountered McGee, who fled. Officers pursued McGee and restrained him, and McGee fell unconscious. He was pronounced dead at a hospital, and his death was later ruled a homicide. 534. 535. March 18, Stefan Clark 22 Sacramento, California. 2 Sacramento Police Department officers, who were investigating reports of a hooded individual breaking car windows, chased Stefan Clark from the front yard to the backyard of his grandmother's house and stopped before walking towards the officers. One or both officers yelled, "Show me your hands," and "gun," before the officers collectively fired 20 rounds. At least 7 of the 20 shots struck Clark, killing him. The county coroner found that 3 shots had struck Clark in the back, while an independent autopsy found Clark was struck 6 times in the back, and once in the front after he was already on the ground. The encounter was filmed by police video cameras and by a Sacramento County Sheriff's Department helicopter. Police stated they fired because they believed Clark pointed a gun at them. No gun was found at the scene, and police later admitted that the officers had mistaken Clark's cell phone for a gun. In 2019, the Sacramento County District Attorney declined to press charges against the police officers, announcing an investigation had found the use of deadly force to be justified. March 22, Danny Ray Thomas 34 Houston, Texas. Deputy Cameron Brewer approached 2 men having an argument at an intersection. Brewer killed Thomas after he walked towards Brewer and ignored his commands to stop. Brewer was later fired, and a spokesperson said he should have used his taser first. 536. March 25, Jalen Jones 31 Newtown, Connecticut. Correctional officers at Garner Correctional Institution kneed and beat Jones after he refused to cooperate with a strip search. Officers put a spit hood over Jones' head and pepper sprayed him. He fell unconscious and died. His death was ruled a homicide. 537. April 4, Shahid Vassal 34 New York City, New York. Police responded to reports of a man with a silver gun in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and shot Vassal when he took a shooting stance. Vassal was holding a metal pipe with a knob on it. 538. April 5, Deontay Yarber 26 Barstow, California. An officer shot Yarber in a Walmart parking lot while investigating a stolen vehicle after he allegedly rammed a police vehicle. The officer had previously been fired from the department after pleading guilty to a hate crime battery, but an arbiter found his termination wrongful and had him reinstated. 539. April 8, Juan Marquis Jones 25 Danville, Virginia. 2 officers responding to a report of a domestic assault shot and killed Jones after he quickly turned around towards them. Prosecutors declined to file charges against the officers involved. 540. April 20th, James Bauduy, 48, Orlando, Florida. Bauduy, suspected of killing his ex-girlfriend's mother, was shot by police during his arrest. An investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement found there was no gun on or near Bauduy, although there was a magazine with bullets near him. 541. April 26th, Jeffrey Melvin, 27, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Melvin was tossed multiple times by police responding to a disturbance. Melvin was hospitalized and died about a week later. His death was ruled a homicide. 542. May 14th, Kevin Robinson, 22, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. Following a chase, police restrained and handcuffed Robinson. After he was handcuffed, officers noticed Robinson was not breathing and brought him to a hospital, where he died. A coroner ruled his death a homicide due to asphyxiation. 543. May 14th, Marcus David Peters, 24, Richmond, Virginia. During a mental health crisis, Peters had a car accident and took off his clothes. He approached Officer Michael Nyantaki, who tossed Peters multiple times before shooting him. 544. May 26th, Earl McNeil, 40, National City, California. McNeil was restrained with a wrap device and had 2 mesh socks put over his head after he turned himself in for a warrant. A nurse referred McNeil for a full medical evaluation, but he lost his pulse by the time the ambulance arrived at the hospital. The medical examiner ruled his death a homicide. 545. June 6th, Maurice Granton Jr., 24, Chicago, Illinois. An officer shot Granton as he climbed a fence. Police say they recovered a weapon, but an attorney stated that it was found 20 to 25 feet from where he was shot. An autopsy showed Granton was shot in the back. 546. June 11th, Robert Lawrence White, 41, Silver Spring, Maryland. An officer shot White after he reached into his pocket. The officer stated he believed White was armed. 547. June 19th, Antoine Rose Jr., 17, East Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After Officer Michael Rosfeld pulled over a vehicle suspected of being used in an earlier drive-by shooting, Rose and another occupant fled. Rosfeld fired, hitting Rose in the back. Although there were weapons and the car and gunshot residue was found on Rose's hands, he was unarmed at the time of the shooting. 548. June 20th, Anthony Marcel Green, 33, Kingsland, Georgia. After a traffic stop, Officer Zechariah Presley chased Green and shot him as he fled. Presley was acquitted of manslaughter charges but found guilty of violating his oath of office. He was sentenced to a year in prison and 4 years probation. 549. 550. June 24th, Dewan Armstrong, 23, Dublin, California. Armstrong died after deputies at the Santa Rita jail restrained him with a full-body restraining jacket and a spit mask. The sheriff initially said Armstrong died of a drug overdose, but an autopsy found his death was a homicide due to the restraint. 551. July 8, Joseph Pettaway, 51, Montgomery, Alabama. Police responded to reports of a possible burglary and encountered Pettaway at the house, where family said he sometimes slept with permission. Police unleashed a canine unit on Pettaway, who was bitten in the thigh and femoral artery. The dog's handler testified he had to choke the dog to near unconsciousness to get it to let go. Pettaway was sent to the hospital, where he died from his injuries. 552.
So busy in competition with your brother and sister, while you fit the description fed property, they own you and your offspring. Priorities all fucked up, thinking you lucked up, same old thing. Chains around your neck, lost respect, all shame pants hang. Everyone wanna be a thug when they grow up, which they never do. Shorty a thought with a fat ass, money in the pot. Act hot, crack spots, selling, destroying your own and self. Wake the hell up for your own sake. No one to blame but self-delusional, misaimed ambitions by any means. Until the ancestors return, consumer consumed by fire.
July 14th, Rashawn Washington, 37, Vineland, New Jersey. An officer shot Washington with a rifle as he held an object wrapped in a black shirt. Police said Washington was holding garden shears, while some witnesses said he was holding a water bottle. 553. July 27th, Cynthia and Fields, 60, Savannah, Georgia. Police attempted to arrest Fields' grandson for a suspected armed robbery. After officers arrived, a shootout occurred between her grandson and police, and Fields was struck by police gunfire. The grandson was charged with murder, among several other charges. 554. September 1st, Oshie Terry, 24, Arlington, Texas. During a traffic stop, Officer Bautran grabbed the passenger side window of Terry's vehicle and shot him as the vehicle began to move. Tran was indicted on a criminally negligent homicide charge. 555. September 5th, James Leatherwood, 23, Hollywood, Florida. A SWAT officer shot Leatherwood, suspected of a murder in Miami, after he reached for his waistband. No firearm was found in the apartment. 556. September 6th, Botham Jean, 26, Dallas, Texas. Off-duty Dallas Police Department officer Amber Geiger erroneously entered Botham Jean's apartment and fatally shot him. Geiger said that she had entered the apartment believing it was her own and that she shot Jean believing he was a burglar. 557. 558. On October 1st, 2019, Geiger was found guilty of murder. 559. The next day, she received a sentence of 10 years in prison. 560. September 8th, Marcus Smith, 38, Greensboro, North Carolina. Police restrained Smith after reports of a man running through traffic in downtown Greensboro. Smith fell unconscious and died at the scene, and his death was ruled a homicide. 561. September 15th, Anton Black, 19, Greensboro, Maryland. Police restrained Black outside his family's home, where he was handcuffed and shackled before he stopped breathing. The state medical examiner's office concluded Black's death was accidental, but a cardiologist at Johns Hopkins University concluded he died by asphyxiation. 562. October 3rd, Chinedu Okobi, 36, Millbrae, California. San Mateo County Sheriff's Deputy Joshua Wong stopped Okobi after he was suspected of jaywalking. Wong and other deputies used tasers, batons, and pepper spray on Okobi, who fell unconscious and died. His death was ruled a homicide. 563. October 17th, Charles Roundtree Jr., 18, San Antonio, Texas. Officer Steve Casanova, responding to reports of an assault, shot a man who he believed had a gun, but the man's DNA was not found on the weapon. The bullet unintentionally struck Roundtree, killing him. 564. October 28th, Marshall Miles, 36, Sacramento, California. Police arrested Miles after he was reported for jumping on cars. When he was transported to jail, he struggled with officers and fell unconscious, dying 4 days later. An autopsy determined his death was caused by a combination of complications of cardiopulmonary arrest during restraint and mixed drug intoxication. 565. October 29th, Albert Dorsey, 30, Los Angeles, California. Officer Edward Agdepa and his partner responded to a 24-hour gym in Hollywood after reports of a disturbance and encountered Dorsey, naked, drying himself off in a locker room. After he ignored commands, the officers attempted to handcuff him. According to Agdepa, the officers tossed Dorsey, who fought with officers and straddled over Agdepa's partner before punching her in the face. Agdepa then said that he told Dorsey to stop, then shot him. However, audio of the shooting does not show Agdepa telling Dorsey to stop before the officer shot him, and U.S. District Judge Christina Snyder ruled that there was no evidence of injuries inflicted by Dorsey onto Agdepa's partner. 566. November 1st, Tony Bernard Smith Jr., 24, Jacksonville, Florida. Smith, a suspect in a carjacking, was shot by Officer Rodney DeConte on a flight of stairs. No gun was found on Smith during the shooting, but a gun was found between the stolen truck and Smith. 567. November 29th, Robert Loggins, 26, Grenada, Mississippi. Police responded to reports that Loggins was in a woman's backyard. Police restrained and tossed Loggins before taking him to the lobby of the jail, where he was left in the prone position. He fell unconscious and died. The state medical examiner ruled his death an accident, but a forensic pathologist concluded his death was a homicide. In 2005, Loggins' mother Debbie Loggins similarly died after she was restrained by police. Her death had been ruled an accident due to advanced heat stroke, despite the sun not having risen, the temperature being in the 70s, and police transporting her in an air-conditioned car. 568. December 9, Christopher DeAndre Mitchell 22 Torrance, California police responded to a stolen vehicle report and encountered Mitchell in a Honda Civic in a supermarket parking lot. After refusing orders to exit the car, police shot Mitchell when he appeared to move his hands towards an air rifle in his lap, though a review said there was no evidence he was reaching for a gun. While the shooting was originally ruled justified, the two officers were charged with voluntary manslaughter in 2023, with District Attorney George Gaskin questioning whether the officers actually saw the air rifle when they fired. 569. December 10, Gregory Edwards 38 Cocoa, Florida Edwards, a combat veteran, who had been diagnosed with PTSD, was arrested in a Walmart parking lot for allegedly assaulting a charity worker. At the police station, Edwards was being escorted when he became involved in a brawl with officers. He was eventually restrained by more than a dozen officers who used pepper spray and stun guns. He was then restrained him in a chair for 16 minutes with a spit hood on. Edwards became unresponsive and was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. In the official autopsy report, the cause of death was listed as excited delirium. 570. December 17, David Baker 32 Aurora, Colorado police responded to a domestic call about a fight. At least 7 officers restrained Baker, who fell unconscious and was declared dead less than an hour. 571. Year 2019. January 5, Jameek Lowry 27 Patterson, New Jersey. Lowry called 911 to say he had swallowed too many ecstasy pills, requesting an ambulance. At the hospital he became erratic and left, later moving to Patterson Police Headquarters, where he filmed himself saying people were trying to kill him. When firefighters arrived, police used physical force and compliance holds to secure Lowry in an ambulance. By the time Lowry arrived at the hospital, he was unconscious, and he died 2 days later. An official autopsy said Lowry's death was accidental, but a second examination from pathologist Michael Baden determined his death was caused by police beating him as he was restrained. 572, 573. January 13, George Robinson 62 Jackson, Mississippi. Officers pulled Robinson from a car, threw him against the pavement, and struck and kicked him. Robinson died 2 days later and his death was ruled a homicide. Officers Desmond Barney, Lincoln Lampley, and Anthony Fox were indicted on second-degree murder, but Barney and Lampley's charges were later dropped. 574. January 15, Detrick Griffin 18 Atlanta, Georgia. Griffin stole a vehicle at a gas station, not knowing it was an unmarked vehicle driven by off-duty officer Oliver Simmons. When Griffin tried to drive away, Simmons shot him, with the vehicle allegedly driving over Simmons' foot. Simmons was indicted for murder, assault, and 2 counts of violating his oath in 2022. 575. January 22, Jimmy Atchison 21 Atlanta, Georgia. A federal task force shot Atchison during an investigation into an armed robbery. Atchison was hiding in a closet and was given conflicting commands to come out with his hands up and to not move. Atchison was leaving the closet when Officer Sung Kim shot him. 576. In 2022, Kim was charged with murder, involuntary manslaughter, and violation of oath by a public officer. 577. February 6, Eleanor Northington 43 Indianapolis, Indiana. Police responding to a mental health crisis restrained Northington at a church. Northington fell unconscious and died due to a lack of oxygen to the brain. 578. February 14, Mario Clark 31 Jackson, Mississippi. Clark's mother called police after Clark, who had schizophrenia, started having a psychotic episode. Police handcuffed Clark and hit him on his legs and head. Clark was put on life support and died days later. His death was ruled a homicide. 579. February 16, Michael Elam Jr. 17 Chicago, Illinois. Following a vehicle pursuit for a traffic offense, the car crashed and 3 teenagers, including Elam, fled on foot. Officer Adolfo Bolano shot Elam 3 times, twice in the back and once in the back of the head. A gun was recovered from the scene, but body camera video showed it was on the other side of the car near where Elam was shot, and attorneys stated he was unarmed. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability recommended Bolanos be fired for shooting Elam, not activating his body camera, not immediately telling dispatchers about the shooting, and not immediately requesting medical attention. 580. February 18, Pierre Woods, 31, Pelahatchie, Mississippi. Police responded after reports of a man firing a gun on his property. After negotiations and a standoff, deputies launched tear gas into the home. Woods exited the front door and threw a pistol onto the ground. The deputies then began shooting, killing Woods. Several of the officers involved later pleaded guilty to torturing two men at a home in 2023. 581. March 24, Kevin Bruce Mason, 57, Baltimore, Maryland. Police responded to an assault call at a home and entered a standoff with Mason. Following the standoff, during which Mason claimed he had a gun, police shot Mason as he stepped outside. A search of the home found no firearms. Mason had been involved in another standoff with police when he was 17. 582. March 28, Javier Ambler, 40, Austin, Texas. Deputies James Johnson and Zachary Camden tossed Ambler multiple times during a traffic stop, leading to his death. Ambler's death was ruled a homicide, and in 2021, Johnson and Camden were indicted on manslaughter charges. In addition, Williamson County Sheriff Robert Chody was indicted on a felony evidence tampering charge. Ambler's death was recorded by a live PD crew, but A&E stated that the footage had been deleted. 583. 584. April 13, Julius Graves, 43, St. Louis, Missouri. Police responded to reports of a man attacking a bus stop and encountered Graves, who had a history of mental health issues. Officers chased and attempted to tase him. Police handcuffed and restrained Graves, and while held down, EMTs injected him with an antipsychotic and a sedative. He fell unconscious and was declared brain dead, and was taken off of life support days later. 585. April 29, Isaiah Lewis, 17, Edmond, Oklahoma. Police responded to reports of a person running naked in a neighborhood. After officers found Lewis, he broke into a home and got into an altercation with officers. An officer shot Lewis. 586. May 10, Ronald Green, 49, Union Parish, Louisiana. Police chased Green after a traffic violation. After a crash, police beat and dragged Green, also putting him in a headlock. He became unresponsive and was put in an ambulance, but he died on arrival to the hospital. Initial reports stated Green's death was caused by the car accident, but a later medical examiner stated his death was a homicide. 587. May 15, Juentez Anthony Mitchell, 30, Jeffersontown, Kentucky. Police investigated Mitchell in connection with a series of robberies. As officers surrounded Mitchell in his vehicle, he accelerated, hitting a Jeffersontown police car. An officer with the Louisville Metro Police Department then shot him. 588. May 26, Terrence Bridges Jr., 30, Kansas City, Missouri. Police responded to reports of a carjacking and encountered Bridges. After a struggle, Bridges was shot by Officer Dylan Pfeiffer, who told investigators he feared Bridges was reaching for a gun in his sweatshirt. 589. June 2, Miles Hall, 23, Walnut Creek, California, shot by police during a mental health crisis. The family called 911 to help Miles, who was having a mental health emergency. Miles' mother had a long-standing relationship with the local police, who knew about Miles' schizoaffective disorder and had helped the family hospitalize him in the past. However, the officers who arrived that day fatally shot Miles within minutes of their arrival. 590. June 16, Ryan Twyman, 24, Willowbrook, California. Deputy Andrew Lyons and another deputy responded to an apartment complex and shot Twyman after he put his vehicle into reverse. Lyons then retrieved his semi-automatic rifle and fired again, after the vehicle stopped moving. Lyons was charged with 1 felony count of voluntary manslaughter and 2 felony counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm. 591. July 5, Timar Crawford, 28, Pensacola, Florida. Police pulled Crawford over for marijuana. After fleeing from officers, Crawford and an officer scuffled, at which point another officer shot him. The officer who shot Crawford was later fired for violating department policy. 592. July 25, Joseph Richardson, 38, Port Allen, Louisiana. Deputy Vance Mantrana shot Richardson in the back of the neck during a drug sting after he reached towards his waistband. 593. August 24th, Elijah McLean, 23, Aurora, Colorado. McLean, a massage therapist, died after officers Nathan Woodyard, Jason Rosenblatt, and Randy Roedema restrained him, after which paramedics Jeremy Cooper and Peter Sachuniak used ketamine to sedate him. McLean fell unconscious, was declared brain dead, and died on August 30th. Originally listed as undetermined and unknown, McLean's autopsy report was later amended to state his death was caused by acute ketamine administration during violent subdual and restraint by law enforcement and emergency response personnel, although the manner of death was still undetermined. The officers and paramedics were charged with manslaughter and lesser charges. 594. September 5th, Byron Williams, 50, Las Vegas, Nevada. Williams died after police restrained him after he was stopped for riding his bicycle without safety lights. The county coroner's office ruled his death a homicide. 595. October 14th, Christopher Whitfield, 31, Ethel, Louisiana. Deputy Glenn Sims Sr. chased Whitfield after he allegedly stole raw chicken from a convenience store. Sims fired a warning shot into the ground and grabbed the back of Whitfield's hoodie, leading to a scuffle. Police say during the scuffle, Whitfield hit Sims' gun, causing it to fire and hit Whitfield in the back. 596. December 2nd, Michael Lorenzo Dean, 28, Temple, Texas. Officer Carmen DeCruz shot and killed Dean after a traffic stop. An affidavit says DeCruz gun at Dean with his right hand and tried to pull Dean's car keys with his left, leading him to shoot Dean. DeCruz resigned and was charged with second-degree manslaughter. 597. He was acquitted in February 2023. 598. December 3rd, Cameron Lamb, 26, Kansas City, Missouri. Following a traffic accident, Officer Eric J. DeValconaire shot and killed Lamb as he backed his pickup truck into his driveway. DeValconaire said he believed Lamb was pointing a gun at his partner, but Lamb was unarmed. DeValconaire was sentenced to 6 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter and armed criminal actions. After serving little more than a year, the remainder of DeValconaire's sentence was commuted on December 20th, 2024 by outgoing Missouri Governor Mike Parson. 599, 600. Year 2020. January 5th, Jameek Lowry, 27, Patterson, New Jersey. Lowry called 911 to say he had swallowed too many ecstasy pills, requesting an ambulance. At the hospital he became erratic and left, later moving to Patterson Police Headquarters, where he filmed himself saying people were trying to kill him. When firefighters arrived, police used physical force and compliance holds to secure Lowry in an ambulance. By the time Lowry arrived at the hospital, he was unconscious, and he died 2 days later. An official autopsy said Lowry's death was accidental, but a second examination from pathologist Michael Baden determined his death was caused by police beating him as he was restrained. 572, 573. January 13th, George Robinson, 62, Jackson, Mississippi. Officers pulled Robinson from a car, threw him against the pavement, and struck and kicked him. Robinson died 2 days later and his death was ruled a homicide. Officers Desmond Barney, Lincoln Lampley, and Anthony Fox were indicted on second-degree murder, but Barney and Lampley's charges were later dropped. 574. January 15th, Detrick Griffin, 18, Atlanta, Georgia. Griffin stole a vehicle at a gas station, not knowing it was an unmarked vehicle driven by off-duty officer Oliver Simmons. When Griffin tried to drive away, Simmons shot him, with the vehicle allegedly driving over Simmons' foot. Simmons was indicted for murder, assault, and 2 counts of violating his oath in 2022. 575. January 22nd, Jimmy Atchison, 21, Atlanta, Georgia. A federal task force shot Atchison during an investigation into an armed robbery. Atchison was hiding in a closet and was given conflicting commands to come out with his hands up and to not move. Atchison was leaving the closet when Officer Sung Kim shot him. 576. In 2022, Kim was charged with murder, involuntary manslaughter, and violation of oath by a public officer. 577. February 6, Eleanor Northington, 43, Indianapolis, Indiana. Police responding to a mental health crisis restrained Northington at a church. Northington fell unconscious and died due to a lack of oxygen to the brain. 578.
Nothing more important than self-development, conquering your shadow inner demons. self-mastery, connecting to source divine. Spiritually inclined spirit will lead every time. High mind, delivering your soul from Babylon darkness, death bondage, to restore your sight wisdom. Third eye open, filled divine light is mind. Full balance, overcoming every challenge with grace. Replace, get rid of your pride, dark ego, empty self. Let spirit fill you. Trust, it's a must to save your soul.
January 1st, Carl Dorsey, 39, Newark, New Jersey. Undercover officer Rod Simpkins responded after hearing gunfire and shot Dorsey. Simpkins was not wearing a body camera, but surveillance footage showed Dorsey was unarmed. Dorsey's death was the first Newark police shooting since before 2020, which had gone without a single shooting. 647. January 1st, Akeem Terrell, 31, Phoenix, Arizona. Police were called after Terrell, who had schizophrenia, refused to leave a party. Police arrested Terrell and transported him to jail, where Terrell believed he had been taken to a fake facility. Police put Terrell in a prone position and held him down, with as many as 7 officers on top of him at one point. After checking on Terrell through a cell door after 6 minutes and seeing him motionless, officers performed CPR, but Terrell died at the hospital. An autopsy listed positional asphyxia as among the factors that killed him. 648, 649. January 10th, Patrick Warren, 52, Killeen, Texas. Responding to a mental health call, Officer Reynaldo Contreras tossed and shot Patrick Warren as he approached the officer waving his arms. A grand jury declined to indict Contreras. 650. January 13th, Lyman Moses, 30, Wilmington, Delaware. Police pursued Moses while investigating stolen vehicles. After the chase entered a dead end, Moses turned around and faced his vehicle towards officers and drove forwards. One officer shot Moses as the car began angling to the left, then fired several more times as he drove away. 651. February 4th, Genoa Donald, 30, Hazel Dell, Washington. Deputies pulled Donald over for a broken taillight. After the situation escalated, a deputy attempted to pull Donald from his vehicle. A second deputy shot Donald, later saying she feared he was reaching for an object, which a lawyer for Donald's family stated was a cordless drill. 652. February 13th, Deverian Kennard, 29, Fontana, California. Kennard, who was previously spotted breaking and entering into a house, was found sitting inside a portable toilet by an officer, and would be fatally shot after unrolling his right hand to reveal a metallic object which was later determined to be a lighter. 653. April 7th, James Lionel Johnson, 38, Tacoma Park, Maryland. David Hall Dixon, an off-duty officer with the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, shot Johnson and Williams, who he believed had stolen a car. The 2 men were shot after they had passed Dixon, and both were shot in the back. Dixon was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. 654. Dominique Williams, 32. April 11th, Dante Wright, 20, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. After pulling Wright over, officers attempted to arrest him for an outstanding warrant. Following a struggle, Wright got back into his car. Kimberly Potter shot him. Wright drove several blocks before hitting another vehicle. 655, 656. The chief of Brooklyn Center Police said the officer who shot Wright meant to use her taser. 657. April 14th, Lindani Maini, 29, Honolulu, Hawaii. Police shot and killed Maini outside a house after a woman called to report he had broken into the building. Maini's wife and her lawyer say Maini mistook the house for a nearby temple. Prosecutor Steve Alm declined to file charges against the officers involved. 658, 659. April 21st, Andrew Brown Jr., 42, Elizabeth City, North Carolina. While serving a warrant on Brown for drug distribution, Brown attempted to drive away, backing his vehicle before turning left, grazing an officer. Police shot at Brown 14 times, 13 of which were fired as Brown drove away. 660. May 3rd, LaMelo Parker, 3 months, Biloxi, Mississippi. Parker, a 3-month-old baby, was abducted by his father Eric Durrell Smith after he killed Parker's mother and her nephew in Louisiana. Following a chase, a shootout occurred between Smith and police, and Parker was shot. 661. May 4th, LaToya James, 37, Woodbine, Georgia. James was visiting her cousin Vershawn Brown when deputies served a narcotics warrant. A shootout occurred between Brown and the deputies, and James was accidentally shot. Brown was charged with James's death, and the two deputies were not indicted. 662. June 1st, Renardo Green, 51, Annapolis, Maryland. Police were called to Green's apartment after his wife said he was under the influence of PCP. Police and paramedics restrained Green face down, and he suffered a cardiac arrest, dying in a hospital days later. His death was ruled a homicide due to being restrained on his stomach, preventing breathing, with drug use also contributing to his death. 663. June 13th, Eric Cole, 42, Springfield, Ohio. Cole called 911 to report someone shot him in the shoulder and that he was in the middle of the street. Dispatchers did not inform the responding officer that Cole was in the road, and when the officer arrived she drove over Cole. The coroner's report stated that Cole was killed by blunt force trauma from being struck by the police cruiser. 664. June 16th, Jermaine Saunier, 19, Houston, Texas. Police pulled Saunier over during a drug investigation. After he ran, police tossed and struggled with Saunier, who complained of difficulty breathing. He was taken to a hospital, where he died. His death was ruled a homicide due to arrhythmia associated with acute methamphetamine toxicity during physical pursuit and restraint. 665. June 22nd, Frederick Holder, 28, Norwalk, California. Deputies attempted to pull over Holder after seeing his van driving erratically. As they approached the car, they saw Holder holding an L-shaped object and fired. Holder was carrying a butane lighter with a handle. 666. July 6th, Leniel Frazier, 40, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Frazier was killed when his vehicle was struck by a police vehicle that was pursuing another vehicle in a high-speed chase. Frazier was an uninvolved bystander. The police officer pleaded guilty to vehicular homicide for causing Frazier's death. 667, 668, 669. July 10th, James Holland Sr., 37, Avondale, Arizona. Police responded to reports that a man walking in the street and encountered Holland, in a state of psychosis and only wearing boxers and tennis shoes. Officers tossed Holland several times, with one officer placing her knee on his back before tossing him. He began foaming at the mouth and later died. His death was ruled a homicide. 670. July 26th, Damian Cameron, 29, Braxton, Mississippi. Deputy Hunter Elward responded to a report that Cameron was burglarizing his home. Elward and another deputy tasered, tackled, and punched Cameron before restraining and arresting him. The Mississippi Chief Medical Examiner said Cameron's cause of death was undetermined, but 3 pathologists consulted by the New York Times argued the death should have been ruled a homicide. Edward was later one of 6 officers who tortured 2 black men at a home in Braxton. 671. August 24th, Tory Brown, 22, College Park, Georgia. Police attempted to arrest Brown for violating his parole. When deputies entered his apartment, Brown quickly advanced toward them and one deputy shot him. No guns were found at the scene. 672. August 27th, Fontability H. Sharon Hill, Pennsylvania. After a high school football game ended, 2 teenagers opened fire following a dispute. Officers Brian Devaney, Devin Smith, and Sean Dolan fired back, striking 4 people, including Billity, who died. The 2 teenagers were initially charged with her death, but those charges were later dropped, and the 3 officers were charged instead. 673. September 24th, Cedric Lofton, 17, Wichita, Kansas. After a report by Lofton's foster family, officers took him to the Sedgwick County Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center. After Lofton punched a staff member, he was restrained, shackled, and handcuffed. Several minutes later, staff members were unable to find a pulse, and Lofton died at a hospital 2 days later. An autopsy ruled his death a homicide. 674. October 4th, Michael Craig, 61, Chicago, Illinois. Craig called police to report his wife was threatening him with a knife. Officer Alberto Covarrubias arrived on the scene and shot Craig. Craig's wife was charged with stabbing him, 675. October 10, Kenneth Anderson, 42, Houston, Texas. Police were called after Anderson was involved in a single-car accident. Sheriff's deputies attempted to arrest Anderson after learning he had an open warrant. Police tossed Anderson multiple times and brought him to a processing center, where he fell unconscious. He was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead, 676. October 11, Jermaine Jones, 24, Augusta, Georgia. During a traffic stop, Jones attempted to run away, leading an officer to use his taser on him. Jones fell to the ground and hit his head. He was taken to a hospital, where he died a week later. His death was ruled a homicide. The deputies involved were cleared of wrongdoing, 677. October 13, Jim Rogers, 54, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Police responded after Rogers, who was homeless, was accused of stealing a bicycle, although the bike's owner stated she was giving it away and Rogers was taking it for a test ride. Police tossed Rogers 8 times, he fell unconscious and died a day later at a hospital. An autopsy ruled his death was accidental. 5 officers were fired for their roles in Rogers' death, 678, 679. October 14, Calvin Wilkes Jr., 40, Crestview, Florida. Police responding to reports of a person shouting for help. Police tossed Wilkes, who fell unconscious and died. His death was ruled a homicide, and officers Brandon Hardaway, William Johns and Evan Reynolds were indicted for manslaughter, 680. November 6, Eldred Wells Sr., 70, Joliet, Illinois. Deputies Nick Benedict and Desmond Warren responded to a domestic disturbance and found 21-year-old Jabbar Muhammad and Wells, his grandfather. When Muhammad began to stab Wells, police fired, killing both men, 681. December 5, Quadri Sanders, 29, Lawton, Oklahoma. Officers Robert Hinkle and Nathan Ronan responded to reports that Sanders was holding a gun in his home and not letting a resident leave. The 2 officers fired at Sanders a total of 15 times. No weapon was found on or near Sanders, and he was holding a cap when he was shot. The 2 officers were later charged with first-degree manslaughter, 682. December 10, Terrence Caffey, 30, Little Rock, Arkansas. An off-duty deputy working security at a movie theater attempted to arrest Caffey after he allegedly fought with theater workers. The deputy restrained Caffey, who fell unconscious and died. His death was ruled a homicide. The Pulaski County prosecutor declined to file charges against the deputy, 683. December 26, James Lowry, 40, Titusville, Florida. Following an assault report, police pursued Lowry for a warrant. After he threw a bag of narcotics over a fence and tried to climb it, Officer Joshua Payne fired both his firearm and taser, striking Lowry. Payne was charged with manslaughter in 2022, 684. Year 2022. January 8, Jason Walker, 37, Fayetteville, North Carolina. An off-duty sheriff's deputy shot and killed Walker after he allegedly jumped on the hood of the deputy's vehicle. A witness says Walker was shot while he was on the ground, 685. January 30, Deonta Quarles Jr., 20, Crofton, Maryland. Police responded to a report of a domestic dispute. They encountered Quarles, who charged at an officer, and a struggle occurred, with a stun gun failing to work. When the officers had Quarles restrained, he bit Officer J. Ricci's finger, and Ricci shot him, 686. February 6, Robert, Jr., Langley, 46, Georgetown County, South Carolina. Officer Cassandra Dollard of the Hemingway Police Department in Williamsburg County attempted to pull over Langley for disregarding a stop sign. After a chase, Langley crashed his car into a ditch in Georgetown County. As Langley attempted to exit his vehicle, Dollard shot him once in the chest. Dollard was charged with voluntary manslaughter, 687. February 19, Donnell Rochester, 18, Baltimore, Maryland. Officers attempted to perform a traffic stop for failure to appear in court on a carjacking charge. Police shot Rochester after his vehicle moved forwards. On a search and seizure warrant, officers stated that Rochester had struck an officer, but body cam footage showed the officer say the car did not hit him, 688. February 22, Tracy Gaeta, 54, Stockton, California. An officer pursued Gaeta after she was suspected of hitting a police vehicle in her car. After a pursuit, Gaeta backed up at a dead end, and the officer fired 18 times. After firing several more shots, the vehicle pulled forward and reversed away from the officer. The officer then fired again over a dozen times, 689. March 1, Quantes Burks, 37, Beaver, West Virginia. Correctional officers beat Burks to death in a surveillance camera blind spot at the Southern Regional Jail. 8 officers were charged with connection with his death, 690. March 11, Kyria Pryor, 39, Independence, Missouri. Police pursued Pryor after he yelled and banged on a man's door. Following a chase, his car crashed, pinning the driver, Pryor, inside. As police removed a front seat and back seat passenger, one officer attempted to remove an AR-15 from the back of the vehicle. An officer outside yelled that there was a gun, leading police to shoot Pryor. Aside from the AR-15 being removed from the car, no weapons were found in the vehicle, 691. April 4, Patrick Lyoya, 26, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Officer Christopher Schur attempted to arrest Lyoya following a traffic stop. The two struggled over Schur's taser. During the struggle, Schur shot him in the back of the head. Schur was charged with second-degree murder, 692. April 25, Herman Whitfield, 39, Indianapolis, Indiana. Police responding to a mental health call used a stun gun on Whitfield and restrained him despite him saying he could not breathe. The coroner's officer ruled Whitfield's death a homicide and said he died from cardiopulmonary arrest in the setting of law enforcement subdual, prone restraint, and conducted electrical weapon use. 693. April 27, Jalen Randall, 29, Houston, Texas. An officer shot Randall after a chase after he exited his vehicle. The officer who shot him started to give a command but fired before finishing his sentence, hitting Randall in the back of the neck. Randall was holding a shoe and a bag with a firearm in it, 694. May 4, Rogers Kairouzi, 30, Atlanta, Georgia. An officer working a part-time job responded to a disturbance where Kairouzi attempted to follow a person into a restaurant. The officer and Kairouzi got into a fight, and the officer shot Kairouzi after he allegedly tried to reach for the officer's gun, 695. May 25, Abe Banks, 53, Wynn Parish, Louisiana. Police responded to reports of a disturbance in Jonesboro and chased Banks onto the highway. After Banks' vehicle suffered a mechanical failure, he stopped in the roadway. Deputies shot Banks after he did not follow their commands, 696. June 27, Jayland Walker, 25, Akron, Ohio. Walker, 25, was shot following an attempted traffic stop and foot chase. Officers fired more than 90 bullets at Walker, who sustained 60 wounds. Footage of the shooting was released 1 week later, on July 3, 2022, 697. June 27, Michael Charles Thompson, 36, El Paso, Texas. An off-duty Texas Tech University police officer working security at a Walmart followed Thompson in the store. He left and entered a nearby gas station, asking the clerk to call police for a mental health crisis. Several El Paso police officers arrived and tossed, choked, punched, and kicked Thompson. He was taken to a hospital, where he was pronounced dead. His cause of death was restrained asphyxia, use of taser deployments, and multiple force blunt force trauma, and his manner of death was ruled homicide, 698. July 7, Brett Rosenau, 15, Albuquerque, New Mexico. During a standoff with a man wanted for a parole violation, the man and Rosenau fled into a home. Police fired a pepper spray canister, which set a mattress on fire and sparked a house fire. The other man left the house and was arrested, while Rosenau stayed inside and died of smoke inhalation. His death was ruled a homicide, 699. July 8, Roderick Brooks, 47, Houston, Texas. Deputy Garrett Hardin responded to a shoplifting report at a Dollar General and encountered Brooks. After Hardin tossed and restrained Brooks, a struggle occurred, and Hardin shot Brooks in the back of the head. Body cam footage shows Brooks grab the taser, but he had never pointed the taser at Hardin and let go of it by the time Hardin shot him. 700. July 20th, Jason Lipscomb, 21, Gastonia, North Carolina. Police responded to reports Lipscomb had kidnapped children he knew, driving them to his mother and stepfather's home. As officers surrounded his vehicle, he backed up, hitting an officer, before attempting to drive forward, away from officers. Police fired more than a dozen times. 701. July 21st, Raymond Caluison, 18, New York City, New York. An off-duty corrections officer shot at a car where Caluison, who had a gel blaster, was a passenger. It is unclear if the gel blaster was fired, but the Correction Officers Benevolent Association claimed the gel blaster had hit the officer in the back. The corrections officer failed to report the shooting and was arrested the next day. Wink with a frown. 702. According to his lawyer, the corrections officer had not realized he had hit anyone, as after he fired the shot, the car had driven away. The corrections officer was indicted in August with a further hearing scheduled for November. 703. July 28, Kyle Dale, 30, Dallas, Texas. Police attempted to arrest Dale after a reported drug deal. According to police, Dale pulled out a firearm and threw it down an aisle, shortly after which an officer shot him. 704. August 2nd, Presley East, 36, Las Cruces, New Mexico. Police responded to reports that a shirtless man had taken a beer from a gas station without paying. Police questioned Ease and, after failing to identify him, attempted to arrest him, resulting in a struggle. Officer Brad Lunsford shot Ease as he was on top of another officer. He was charged with manslaughter for the shooting in October 2023. 705. August 21st, Nazanto Antonio Crenshaw, 17, Greensboro, North Carolina. Police pursued a stolen car after it fled a traffic stop. After being stopped a second time, several occupants left while the driver drove forward, hitting a police car. Police then fired, hitting Crenshaw. 706. August 30th, Donovan Lewis, 20, Columbus, Ohio. Police served a warrant at Lewis's apartment for improperly handling a firearm, assault, and domestic violence. When police entered Lewis's bedroom, an officer shot him after he sat up in bed with an object in his hand. No weapon was found on Lewis, but a vape pen was found nearby. 707. September 5th, Mullick Rockmore, 32, Cleveland, Ohio. An officer with the Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority, CMHA, was patrolling when Rockmore, who had schizophrenia, flagged him down. As the officer exited his vehicle, Rockmore ran to the officer and began punching him. After using his taser, the officer pulled his gun. Rockmore ran away before turning back and running back towards the officer, at which point the officer shot him. 708. September 14th, Genesis Hicks, 26, Frisco, Texas. Police approached Hicks after he was accused of using false identification to buy a car from a dealership. When Hicks ran, police tossed him, causing him to hit his head on the ground. Hicks fell into a coma and died 2 weeks later on September 29. 709. September 24th, Ali Osman, 34, Phoenix, Arizona. An officer shot and killed Osman after he allegedly picked up a rock and prepared to throw it at the officer's car. The district attorney declined to file charges against the officer, who was fired for the shooting in 2024. 710. October 5th, Gershon Freeman, 33, Memphis, Tennessee. Freeman, who was nude, died after being assaulted at the Shelby County Jail. 711. 712.
Corporate divorce. Separate yourself quickly, never turning back, weather the storm. Inner work, be reborn. Scorn not spirit, divine humility is key. Care not what others think or say every day, striving to be better, not bitter within. Trust the divine ancient of days, my friend, not false man-made religions and institutions. Sell not your soul for temporary gain, leave the karmic snarkies behind. Cancel social contracts from the beast streets, public to private, trust in the divine. Unity, united, one spirit, might we fight against the darkest of night. Stop warring against each other, Babylon has fallen, separate yourself, or be destroyed with it. Divine judgment is here. Divine light we gather in, might unite, shutting shit down. No more time given we rise, taking our power back.
Year 2023. January 7th, Tyre Nichols, 29, Memphis, Tennessee. Nichols was pulled over for suspected reckless driving. 723. Police beat, pepper sprayed, and tossed Nichols, who was taken to the hospital, dying 3 days later on January 10th. A preliminary autopsy found he suffered extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating. The 5 officers involved in the incident were fired, as well as 2 EMTs. The 5 officers were later charged with murder. 724. January 17th, Darrell Williams, 32, Raleigh, North Carolina. Police used stun guns on Williams while trying to arrest him. He died, and his death was later ruled a homicide due to cocaine intoxication, physical exertion, conducted energy weapon use, and physical restraint. 725. February 3rd, Alonzo Bagley, 43, Shreveport, Louisiana. Police responded to a reported domestic disturbance at an apartment complex, where Bagley fled from an apartment balcony. After a foot pursuit, Officer Alexander Tyler shot Bagley in the chest as he rounded an apartment corner. No weapons were found on or near Bagley. 726. Tyler was arrested for negligent homicide several weeks later. 727. February 22, Timothy McCree Johnson, 37, Tysons, Virginia. Police were called to a Nordstrom store at Tysons Corner Center by loss prevention officers who reported a man was stealing sunglasses. 2 officers chased the suspected thief, Johnson, to a nearby wooded area and shot him. No weapons were found on or near Johnson. 728. One of the officers, Sergeant Wesley Shiffitt, was later fired. 729. February 24th, James Lanier, 34, Wallace, North Carolina. Police responded to reports of a naked man disturbing customers at a convenience store and encountered Lanier. An officer shot Lanier after he repeatedly moved closer, firing 3 shots, one of which hit. The district attorney said the shooting was justified. 730. March 5th, Dexter Wade, 37, Jackson, Mississippi. Wade died after he was struck and killed by an off-duty police officer driving along I-55. Although authorities identified Wade immediately and his family filed a missing persons report 9 days later, they were not notified of his death for 172 days, after his body had been buried in a potter's field. 731. 732. March 6, Irvo Otieno, 28, Dinwiddie, Virginia. 7 deputies from the Henrico County Sheriff's Office took an inmate, Otieno, to a mental health facility. During the intake process, Otieno became combative with deputies, who restrained him. Otieno died, and the 7 deputies were charged with second-degree murder about a week later. 733. 3 hospital employees were also charged. 734. March 18th, Delanio Martin, 17, Washington, D.C. United States Park police officers found Martin sleeping in a stolen vehicle. After surrounding the vehicle, one officer entered the back seat and ordered Martin not to move. Martin began driving away, and the officer in the back seat shot him. 735. April 11th, Jameer Thompson, 42, Houston, Texas. An officer approached Thompson with his gun drawn as Thompson sat in a stolen vehicle. After Thompson reversed into the officer's vehicle, he stepped out with his hands raised, and the officer grabbed him before the two fought. After the two struggled on the ground for a minute, the officer drew his gun and fired. A friend of Thompson who gave the officer his taser after it fell on the ground was charged with interfering with public duties. 736. June 6, Calvin Keynes, 318, Metairie, Louisiana. Police approached Keynes, suspected of a road rage shooting, as he sat in a stolen vehicle in a parking garage. Deputies pulled their vehicles in front of his. Keynes reversed his car, then turned and drove between the wall and the police car. As this happened, a deputy walking towards the scene shot through the windshield, killing Keynes. 737. June 24, Jarvian Hudspeth, 21, Memphis, Tennessee. Hudspeth died after being fatally shot by a Shelby County Sheriff's deputy during a traffic stop. In October 2023, District Attorney Steve Mulroy declined to file criminal charges against the deputy. 738. 739. July 2, Jawan Dallas, 36, Mobile, Alabama. Police encountered Dallas while responding to reports of a burglary. Officers tossed Dallas, who fell unconscious and died at a hospital. An attorney for Dallas's family claimed he was 200 yards away when the burglary occurred and that eyewitnesses saw two white women and a light-skinned man fleeing the scene. 740. July 3, Gerald Garris, 37, New Rochelle, New York. Police were called to a supermarket after report of a man stealing fruit. Police scuffled with Garris, and Detective Stephen Kahn shot Garris after he allegedly reached for the officer's weapon. 741. July 3, Ahmad Abdullah, 25, Huntington, West Virginia. An officer responded to a report of a man sitting near a gas meter with a lighter and claiming he had a gun. The officer encountered Abdullah and shot him after he charged at the officer. 742. July 28, Freddie Walker, 60, Louisville, Georgia. Sheriff deputies from the Burke County Sheriff's Office responded to a report of a combative mental subject. When they arrived, they first talked to Walker about being taken to a hospital for a mental evaluation. Allegedly, Walker then tried to strike a paramedic, but stopped and was calmed down by the deputies. While the deputies were trying to get Walker inside on a vehicle, a second quarrel occurred and Walker was tossed, restrained. Walker was later pronounced dead at a hospital. No charges were filed in relation to Walker's death. 743, 744. July 31, Ricky Cobb, 233, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Troopers pulled Cobb over for not having taillights. After troopers asked him to exit his vehicle, Cobb began to drive away, at which point a trooper on the passenger side fired 2 shots. 745. August 5, Brandon Cole, 36, Denver, Colorado. Police responded to a domestic disturbance. During the call, Cole lunged at an officer holding a black marker, which police mistook for a knife. An officer fired, killing Cole. 746. August 10, Johnny Hullman, 62, Atlanta, Georgia. Hullman called police following a car accident. After police responded, they determined Hullman was at fault and attempted to arrest him, tossing him. Hullman became unresponsive and died. 747. August 18, Tommen Wilson, 20, Martinez, California. Police responded to an alarm at a cannabis dispensary, though there was no indication from police or the dispensary that a burglary occurred. After police arrived, Tommen Wilson and his brother Tommy Wilson attempted to drive away. 4 officers fired into the vehicle, killing Tommen and wounding Tommy. 748. August 18, Jaquan Fletcher, 32, Pontiac, Michigan. Police responded to a report of a vehicle blocking a driveway and found Fletcher sleeping inside. After removing a gun from the car and placing it on the roof, police attempted to arrest Fletcher. A deputy shot and killed Fletcher after he put the vehicle into drive with the deputy hanging out. 749. August 23, Kyrie Myers, 28, Washington Park, Illinois. During a traffic stop, a Washington Park officer approaches Myers and fought with him. Myers broke free and stole a police car, driving it into a nearby pole before an officer shot him. Myers drove to another county, where he exited the vehicle and died when a police car struck him. 750. August 24, Takia Young and unborn baby, 21, Blendon Township, Ohio. Young was sitting in her car outside a Kroger when 2 police officers approached the car and demanded multiple times that Young exit the vehicle. One officer stood beside the driver's door and another stood in front of the vehicle. Young remained behind the wheel and told the officers that she did not steal anything. After about 1 minute, Young turned the steering wheel and the officer in front of the car drew his pistol. As the car lurched forward, the officer fired 1 shot through the windshield, killing Young and her unborn baby. September 1, Darrell Vance, 71, Detroit, Michigan. An officer responded to a disorderly conduct call at a bowling alley and encountered Vance, the subject of the call. The 2 got into an argument, and the officer punched Vance, causing him to fall and hit his head on the pavement. Vance died of his injuries several weeks later. The officer was fired and charged with manslaughter. 751. September 6, Dal Pothwey, 17, DeWitt, New York. Mo and Pothwey died after an Onondaga County Sheriff's deputy shot into the stolen vehicle they were in, causing it to crash a short time later. One of the boys died from gunshot wounds, while the other died from injuries sustained from the crash. Sources say that the driver of the car attempted to run the deputy over. 752, 753. Luth Mo 15. October 12, Emmanuel Miller, 20, Roswell, Georgia. Woodstock police pursued Millard after he fled a traffic stop. After police performed a pit maneuver on the car, an officer shot Millard as he exited the car. The officer was indicted for involuntary manslaughter in April 2024, 754. October 16, Leonard Cure, 53, Camden County, Georgia. Police attempted to arrest Cure during a traffic stop. After being tossed, Cure fought a deputy, who used his taser and baton against him, before shooting Cure. 755. October 24, Darcel Edwards, 35, Indianapolis, Indiana. Police pursued Edwards after he fled a traffic stop. After an officer discovered his vehicle crashed in an intersection, police searched for Edwards and found him up in a nearby tree. Edwards refused to get down and reportedly told officers to shoot him, and an officer shot Edwards when he reached for his pocket. A gun holster was found on Edwards, but no weapons were. 756. October 28, Bernard Tony Jr., 13, Washington, D.C. Tony and a 12-year-old boy approached an off-duty U.S. Marshal as he sat in his vehicle before his shift. They demanded the officer exit his car, with one of them holding his hand in his waistband pocket as if he had a gun. The officer exited his vehicle and shot Tony. The officer's handgun was the only gun recovered from the scene. The 12-year-old was later turned in by his mother. 757, 758, 759. October 29, Lavon Coleman, 21, Odenton, Maryland. Police arrested Coleman and another man after they were reported for being in a car with guns and drugs. Coleman ran as he was being handcuffed, leading a trooper to tase him. Coleman hit his head and fell unconscious. He died of his injuries in December. 760. November 1, Breon Johnson, Davis, 36, Palmetto, Florida. A clerk at a Circle K convenience store called Palmetto police after reporting that Davis was aggressive with staff and customers. When police arrived, Davis allegedly ran up to the officer's squad car and began banging on the driver's window. Davis also allegedly jumped on the hood of the patrol car and began rolling around. Davis continued, resisted arrest and was tossed, leading to him having a medical episode. Davis would later succumb to his injuries at a hospital on November 3, 761, 762. November 23, DeMarcus Brody, 49, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Fayetteville police officer Dillian Hoke shot Brody after having allegedly a physical altercation with Brody during a traffic stop. 763. December 13, Tony Cox, 33, Pontiac, Michigan. Deputies pulled over Cox, saying his vehicle looked similar to one involved in a recent shooting. Cox fled, driving past deputies, before they performed a pit maneuver and Cox crashed. Cox exited his vehicles with his hands clasped and pointed at officers, and one of them fired a shot. Several other officers then shot Cox as he ran away. 764. Year 2024. January 24, Clifford Brooks, 41, Washington, D.C. Police had Brooks transported in an ambulance during a mental health call. After Brooks allegedly assaulted medical personnel and fled the ambulance, police followed him to a truck. Brooks exited from underneath the truck holding an air pressure gauge and charged at officers, who shot him. 765, 766. February 3, Rashad Graham, 30, Lauderhill, Florida, allegedly chased his girlfriend into a gas station convenience store, ramming the entrance with his vehicle. Shot during pursuit, after fleeing from the scene on foot upon the police's arrival. Officer claims Graham reached for their weapon, resulting in fatal shooting. 767. February 3, Isaac Goodloe, 330, Carroll Stream, Illinois. After responding domestic violence incident involving Goodloe, he was fatally shot by Carroll Stream police officers inside his apartment. A video of the shooting was released on March 1, 768. March 16, Terrell Miller, 4, Macomb, Illinois. Police responded to a call and found Miller's mother with multiple stab wounds. Officers found 57-year-old Anthony T. George, who grabbed Miller and took him hostage at knife point. One officer fired a single shot, killing both Miller and George. 769. March 21, Kadarius Smith, 17, Leland, Mississippi. Police were called to a home after asking Smith to leave following a dispute. When officers arrived, Smith fled on foot. An officer in a police cruiser ran over Smith, who died at a hospital. The city attorney for Leland claimed it was an accident. 770. April 17, Samuel Sterling, 25, Kentwood, Michigan. During a foot pursuit, a Michigan State Police sergeant driving an unmarked police vehicle struck and killed Sterling in the parking lot of a Burger King. The following month, Sergeant Brian Keeley was charged with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. 771, 772. April 18, Frank Tyson, 53, Canton, Ohio. Canton police officers responded to a report of a crash. A motorist directed police to the bar, where a woman asked the police to get Tyson out of there. Police officers then handcuffed Tyson while he was resisting. They then restrained him with a knee on his back. 5 minutes later, officers checked his pulse and found him dead after CPR. 773. April 20, Jabril Cheevers, 14, Waldo, Florida. State troopers pursued a stolen vehicle out of Gainesville. Troopers used a pit maneuver on the car, causing it to crash into a pole and killing the 4 occupants, all Newberry High School students. 774. Lawrence McClendon, 17. Philemon Moore, 16. Telek Roberts. May 14, Dennis Bodden, 46, Pineville, North Carolina. Bodden, suspected of shoplifting at a supermarket, was fatally shot by a Pineville police officer after Bodden allegedly reached for an officer's weapon. 775. May 23, Killen Lewis, 37, Aurora, Colorado. Officers approached Lewis to arrest him in connection with a drive-by shooting in Denver. When officers approached, Lewis raised his hands in the air while holding a cell phone, and an SWAT officer shot him. 776. May 26, William Rankin, 43, Florence County, South Carolina. Rankin was involved in vehicle pursuit that ended when Rankin crashed into a tree. Afterwards, Rankin ran into a house. Florence County Deputy Trayvon Sellers pursued Rankin into the house and fatally shot Rankin on a couch. In August, Sellers was fired and charged with Rankin's death. He was also charged with assault for letting his K-9 unit maul the uninvolved homeowner. 777, 778. June 4, Roland Hill, 34, Virginia Beach, Virginia Sheriff's deputies restrained Hill at a jail after he was arrested for trespassing. He died, and his death was ruled a homicide by asphyxiation. 3 sheriff's deputies were charged with murder in connection with his death. 779. July 6, Sonia Massey, 36, Springfield, Illinois. Massey called police to report a possible intruder at her home. Deputies responded, and after clearing the area, one shot and killed Massey, who was unarmed. Prosecutors said the deputy yelled at Massey to drop a pot of water she was holding, and that Massey apologized and ducked for cover before the deputy shot her in the face. The deputy was indicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder as well as aggravated battery with a firearm and official misconduct. 780, 781. August 28, Cameron Ford, 37, Omaha, Nebraska. A SWAT officer fatally shot Ford during a no-knock raid after he ran towards them without his hands visible. Ford was unarmed when the officer shot him. The city temporarily paused the use of no-knock warrants in response to the shooting. 782. September 6, John McLeod, 58, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Police responded to a burglary and shot McLeod inside a home. Attorneys for McLeod's family said body camera footage showed McLeod was on the ground and not armed when he was shot. 783. October 3, Robert Jones, 54, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A Philadelphia police officer and Jones stopped their cars as the officer drove home from work. Jones approached the officer's car, and for unknown reasons the officer shot him. 784. October 23, Elroy Clark, 42, Punta Gorda, Florida. Deputies responded to reports of a dispute between Clark and another man. After discovering he had a warrant, deputies attempted to take Clark into custody. When he resisted, they used tasers, pepper sprays, batons, and beanbag rounds, ultimately shooting him when he allegedly charged at an officer. 785. December 10, Robert Brooks, 43, Marcy, New York. Correctional officers beat Brooks to death while he was handcuffed and compliant. 786, at Marcy Correctional Facility, where he was an inmate. New York Governor Kathy Hochul recommended 14 employees involved in his death be fired, 787. Until this day year 2025. March 1st Messiah Nantwi 22 Marcy, New York correctional officers at the Marcy Correctional Facility beat Nantwi to death. Nantwi's death occurred about a week after 10 facility employees were charged in connection with the death of Robert Brooks in December 2024. 15 employees were placed on leave in connection to Nantwi's death, 788, 789, 10 prison guards would later be charged in connection with Nantwi's death, with 2 of these guards being charged with murder, 790.